Magicians of Reddit. When, if ever, have you used your skills for unethical purposes? I was probably 17, 18 and was hanging out with my crush and some others. I knew one card trick that was actually pretty good and others had seen it, so someone asked to show them. So I did it to her, and just before the end I said something like, "What would you give me if this is your card? What do you want? Would you give me a kiss?" "Oh, I would give you much more than a kiss because I can see that's not it. You know this is a trick. Right. Designed to distract and impress and all that. I know that's not the card. I've been watching closely. It was the card and I got the kiss. But in the end she married my best friend. Okay, I'm a juggler, not a magician. But I occasionally dabble in a bit of prestidigitation. Nothing spectacular, just a bit of coin work, palming, waterfalls. Basic shit really. Except one day I decided to see how many times I could make a coin land the way I wanted it to. Turns out, it's 37. Or that is when I got bored with it. So anyway, you can imagine the ways that sort of skill could be put to ill use. It came in handy a time or two when I used to hustle pool. I've been tempted. I can regularly remove people's watches and move them to their other hand in the middle of a conversation. After so many times you can't help but think this MF deserves to be robbed. One of my closest friends was a magician. He also did walking ghost tours and would incorporate bits of magic. One of his tricks was taking people's watches, telling a story about how ghosts happen to make people's objects disappear, and then calling attention to the missing watch. And of course handing it back. 99% of people never noticed him doing it. If he was a less scrupulous person, he could easily rob someone with both of them walking away smiling. I don't know if it's technically unethical, but I once did an ambitious card routine, and then pretended like I was going to make the card appear in a random drawer in the house. Instead there was a Smirnoff Ice in there. The look of betrayal on her face when she opened the drawer. This was back when icing was really popular at it. I forgot also used to be able to cull a deck while shuffling. Did it one time with my friends when we weren't playing for money, but they banned me from dealing during money games after that anyways. I knew someone that was really good at sleight of hand with cards. For a good while I also thought he was a really gold magic, the Gathering, but it turned out he would cheat cards in and out of his decks, or top deck certain cards to advance and win more prizes on tournament nights, etc. I've won a lot of card games that I shouldn't have. I've picked locks to get back inside my foster parents' house when they've locked me outside at night and forgotten about me. I've picked pockets once or twice when I was young. I'm ashamed to admit that one. I've gaslighted my siblings with little tricks. I still do occasionally. I was a pretty shitty kid, but in my defense I never came close to treating anyone as bad as I was treated. One time I was trying to scare off the owner of a movie theater so I could buy it real cheap. I made it look like it was haunted by a ghost of a dead magician. My plan was to turn it into a shopping mall and making a huge sum of money. I would have succeeded if it weren't for those damn kids and their dog. Didn't have much money growing up, but I knew a few card tricks and a few coin tricks. So, I would make a quarter disappear into my elbow, then not make it reappear. If I do that 3 times, I now have a Coke out of the vending machine. Kids would just give me quarters that I would disappear. I would say that nickels were too thick. Dimes and pennies were too small and might get lost inside my forearm. Then there was a card trick where after they pick a card and put it back, I flip a bunch of the cards onto the table. Then I hold out of the next one face down. I say, "How much would you like to bet what the next card I flip over is your card?" They would see that their card is already on the table, so they bet. I flip their card over to face down and I make $5 to $10 for lunch for a few days. It was pretty easy money. But it was a rather wealthy district. I would have felt bad, but they knew it was a magic trick from the beginning and still bet and gave me money. So I viewed it as charging for a performance. Not a magician, but I practiced card magic for a while. Basically just being able to control where cards go and shuffle without shuffling. One time I was playing poker with some friends, and one of them asked why I wasn't winning while also accusing me of cheating the whole time. I wasn't even the dealer, so I said, "Do you want to see me cheat?" I said, "Here, let me deal," and swap the deck with my own marked deck. I just told them it was my magic deck. Basically just has slight variations on the back that tell me which card is which. I then dealt everyone really good hands but made sure mine was better. This went on for a while, and then I let someone else deal the deck, and since it was a marked deck, I knew what everyone had. For whatever reason I read this as Mexicans of Reddit. I immediately wondered what skills you were speaking of. A few years ago my friend and I were in a kebab shop after a night out, and some drunk old blokes wandered in being loud and annoying. They started harassing a young woman in there on her own, and made a few homophobic comments towards some other people waiting for their food. So my friend decided to distract them with some magic to stop them annoying everyone. Little did they know that he's a master at sleight of hand magic, and managed to pickpocket both their phones and one of their watches. Right before they were about to leave, he asked them if they think they might have been a bit inappropriate with the other people in the shop, and they agreed. He even got them to apologize. So as they went to leave, he held out the stolen goods and said, "Well, I guess you can have your things back then." Should have seen their faces. It was probably the coolest thing I've ever witnessed. I use a two-headed quarter for every coin toss since learning coin work. My old housemates used to coin tosses for chores, and damn did I have smooth sailing at that place. But yafix and coin toss bets. Also, I pick locks and have many times picked my way into a public restroom after hours because I know they get cleaned before they get locked. I'm not sorry and I won't stop. I like to drink at parks at night. Also less unethical, but I've definitely also used magic a lot to schmoz up to women at parties and bars, and it's definitely gotten me laid when I would have otherwise been a wallflower. I tried dabbling in pickpocketing, for tricks, not theft, but it's pretty impractical. Pickpocketing, however, is much easier and useful, and sometimes I load coins and stuff into people's pockets or hats, and that's mildly unethical to touch people without consent, but it's all for fun, so I don't know. And the magic it produces is top-notch? Avid poker player and magician here. Yes, I can stack a deck and do false shuffles and all that. Have I in games? A little in my weekly poker league when I would deal. I would throw in some false shuffles to see if I could get away with it, but never stack the deck in order to cheat. Plus, even if you have developed the skill to do this type of thing with cards, and I know some people who were way above my pay grade with this skill and used a deal for mob card games where the typical buy-in for players was $25K and up. You don't do that frequently like with every hand. You throw it in every once in a while, or when players are starting to put more money at risk. I used to play poker in a league with my brother and my brother-in-law. One time, all three of us were out of the tournament early, so the two of them decided to play heads up. They asked me to deal. Big mistake. This is where I had a ton of fun. After a while of them playing, I controlled all four aces to the top of the deck after I shuffled. So each one of them got pocket aces. I just sat back and watched the fireworks. Both of them knew I was a magician, and they both said, "Hey, we want to cut the deck when you're done shuffling." I said okay. Then I shuffled all the face cards and aces to the middle, and let them cut the deck to bring them all to the top. You can imagine what happened then. I am not a magician, but I know a mind-reading trick, and used it at Mardi Gras to get girls to flash everybody. I would tell them, "I will ask you 3 questions that there is no way of me knowing, and if I get 2 to 3 of them right, then I win and you flash us. If I lose, you get my big beads." Worked every time till I got too drunk to do the trick. I'm a lousy magician, but I can sleight of hand cards okay. I used to cheat at strip poker to get the pretty girls naked and not have to myself. I don't lose sleep over it. I'm good at card handling and have, on multiple occasions, controlled cards in a deck while playing Magic the Gathering. I once used it for good when I shuffled a marriage proposal proxy card I made to the top of the deck. When I was much younger, I'd steal things from my teachers' desks like pens, pencils, erasers, calculators, and tampons through the use of another teacher, misdirection. I've read a lot of books on communication and psychology, and so many courses specialized in communicating. Was at a party with this one guy who would be manipulative towards others way too often, and everyone tried to please him. One particular time he pissed me off by halfway demolishing someone. So I calmly, politely, and accurately set him on fire with 2 or 3 sentences in front of 20 people. He looked at me, left, and did not talk to me for years. I should have talked to him one-to-one. We made up later and are good friends now. So I wouldn't call it unethical, but it was deceitful. So I used to be really big into true LARPing, live-action role-playing for those unaware. It's like D&D, but you are running around with foam swords and fireball beanbags. It's the reason I was in such good shape, because that shit was physical, and somehow I got hooked into going to a 2-day event. It was mostly people I liked, but there was this one person I was really not keen on being with, and when she stole my character concept, I had to go with something else. Enter 2-Bit the Wizard, who was a trick magician who lied to people about having actual magic, so she wouldn't have to use it. The group liked the idea so much that we decided to go as a traveling circus, and 2-Bit was the magician. Well, what we didn't expect was for the hosts to like it so much that they asked us to actually perform. Which was bad, because I knew zero magic tricks. The best I had up my sleeve was 52 pickup. I can barely flip a coin. I had never done magic a day in my life. I also had awful stage fright. I told them this and they said not to worry, just to make something up. But I was worrying. So being the anxious mess that I was, I do what I do best. Go out and make some friends to avoid thinking about stuff. Our alchemist rogue was picking some lock for a necromancer, who I started hanging out with, illegal in this world. But he was cool and saved my life later. But that's another story. Who introduced me to the group he was with? The juckiest barbarian I had ever met. A volleyball-playing elf archer. And 2 frat boy finesse fighters who fenced. They taught me how to fence. I helped them out in a few quests since they were low on arcane casters. Eventually, the time came and I vented a bit, and it turns out one of them was a real goddamn magician. He said he didn't have enough time to teach me, since my sleight of hand was so bad and we were really crunched for time. But there was another way. My character is already based on someone who was lazy and lying about their powers. Nobody but him and his other frat buddy knew he was a magician. The idea was that I was so lazy that I would pick someone out of the crowd, frat boy, to do my card trick for me. The classic pick a card, any card. I would start out, pretend to get lazy halfway through when the real sleight of hand was supposed to happen, and pick him out of the audience to finish it. He would act surprised like he didn't know how he did it, and I would get to not embarrass myself in front of a ton of people. It went off without a hitch. The hosts were so happy with the entire group's performance that we got gifted a magic sword. People kept coming up after the show to ask me how I did it, how I got this frat guy rando to do a magic trick that he still professed to never have learned. Well, a magician never reveals her secrets. And neither, apparently, do the coolest frat guys I have ever met.